Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our webinar on Just Say No to No, Keeping Your Space Positive. This is Jamie Machek with the Nicolay Federated Library System, coming to you from Green Bay, Wisconsin, and I'm hoping for the rest of you, hopefully if you're listening in from around the state, you're having a glorious sunny day like we are. And our presenter today is Candice Warren. And I met Candice at the ARSL conference last fall in Tacoma, and I didn't hear her speaking. She wasn't presenting. I wasn't presenting. We just kind of happened to be table mates, I think is what you could call it, right, Candice? Mm-hmm. At a session. And she was telling me how her library stopped using signage in the children's space, and I thought it sounded very interesting, and she graciously agreed to do a webinar for us. So right now she is the Children's Department Director at the Livingston County Library in, I'm going to try to say this, Chillicothe. Did I get it right?
That's right.
Okay. Right. Chillicothe, Missouri. Candice, whenever you are ready, go right ahead.
All right. As Jamie said, my name is Candy Warren, and I'm the Children's Director in the Children's Department at the Public Library. And my role really is to order the books, process the books, make sure basically that our ship keeps going forward and stays afloat. So that's my role. I was a teacher for 7 years in the public school system before I came and joined the library world, which I love. And, of course, I'm the mom of 2 children, so not only do I direct the children's department down here, but I also am a patron of the children's department with my own children. Just to give you a little bit of background on our library, we have a service area size of about 15,000. Our number of checkouts last year was around 31,000. The building that we're currently in was built in 1915 as a federal court building and post office. On our second floor, we house a federal courtroom. It was never actually used as a courtroom, but so now we're left with this big, wonderful space. We renovated our building roughly 5 years ago with the help of a tax levy. Because we are in the federal court building, we are cramped for space, so the children's department is located in the basement. And the reason I'm telling you this is because as we talk about our spacing, it really has an impact on how we use our space. And you know, you have to work with what you have, and the area we have is not ideal, but we're blessed to have it. We have 3 entrances, 1 exterior stairwell, 1 interior stairwell, and 1 stairwell that also has an elevator entrance. So for being a children's department, it's a little rough to have 3 stairwells where they have to come down. Today's objective really, though, is to create a spark about what you can do to add more positivity into your space. And I think you'll find that this is easier than you think. Let's take a quick journey. As you walk to the door of an unfamiliar library, you reach for the door handle, but various signs catch your attention. There's no large bags, no cell phone usage, no bare feet, no food. You open the door and step inside a dark lobby. You're greeted by a crammed bulletin board full of flyers and posters, some old and some new. A shh sign warns you that this is a no-talking zone. You wander around, finding a warning not to sit in the chairs. A staff member looks up from the circulation desk and smiles hello. Does this sound like a library that you have seen or an experience that you have had? I just wanted to point out that during this visit, this patron had 9 interactions, most of them visual, 8 of which were negative, and happened before they even came to the circulation clerk or saw a smiling face. And so it's an experience like this that really made us look at what we can do to add positivity to our space. Now we're going to change roles just a little bit, and I'm going to have you think about something else or picture something else. You walk to the door of a library and check the hours to see if they're open. It is easy to find the hours because there's a sign placed at eye level, and it's the only thing on the door other than a city ordinance sign. You pull the handle and head down a staircase, greeted by bright and cheerful colors. You see a mom and her child playing in a sandbox and other children talking into a tube. You stop to check the bright monthly calendar with current events to see what's going on that month. You walk past an organized and full book display, a grouping of comfortable seating, and a touchscreen OPAC machine mounted near the seating area. A clerk smiles at you from an uncluttered circulation desk where a book is being featured. You walk over to check out the book, wondering if you've read it before. During this visit, the patron had 8 interactions, most of which were visibly positive before they even saw the clerk. So there wasn't anything that was huge and monumental in changes. It was just a few tweaks, but you were able to build in 8 positive encounters before you even came to the door. So what I am going to ask you to do right now is just take a moment to mentally visit all your entrances or the entrances in the libraries near you. Can you visualize the signage? Right off the bat, do you think of any no signs? How are your entrances? Are they dark? Are they bright? Are they beautiful? I'm going to give you a moment to think about that. Before I jump into the how you can do away with the no signs, I want to really spend a moment talking about the why we think this is worth the effort. And this is something that we here at the Livingston County Library are very positive about and very passionate about. We have limited real estate. As I said before, we're in the basement of an old building, and the walls, it's a kind of a dark place, and we do the best with what we have. And we also, because of that, have limited prime real estate. We just decided that we didn't want to use ours with negative signs. We wanted to make an impact from the moment they came through the door until the time that they left. We are blessed with a big area. The children's department is on our own floor, so we have the freedom. We don't really have to worry about noise level or anything like that. But it's a choppy area. It was never meant to be a children's library or really meant to house anything other than storage and offices. And though we have renovated, you can only do so much when you're in the basement and the kind of the structure of the building. The wall space is not great, and so we really had to look at why and what we were going to do. We have all had an experience where you walk into a place where you just don't feel comfortable. Maybe the lighting is dark, maybe it's cramped, maybe you don't know where anything is at, there's no signage that tells you where to go, maybe you don't see anybody for quite a while, so you're kind of just wandering around lost. Impressions are usually made in a library and elsewhere before you even talk to anybody. When I enter a place, I can usually tell what kind of service I'm going to have within the first 5 or 10 minutes, or I can tell what the visit's going to be like. Sometimes you'll be in a place where the salesperson follows you around all over the place, and that makes an impression. And so that made a big impact with us. What kind of impression was being made before our patrons even walked to the circulation desk? Usually there are 2 main reasons we found to put up a sign. Patrons want to know something, so they're looking for a sign. They're looking for it somewhere. The second reason may be that we want the patron to know something or to be warned about something. Most of the time, people don't bother reading the signs in these instances. We all have the people that we feel like the ones that really need to read the sign don't, and that may be why. Overall, we just really thought this was not the environment that we wanted to create. We didn't want somebody to have their head full of no's as they come into our department and already have negativity and things they can't do before they even find about all the wonderful things that we do have and all the wonderful things they and their children are offered. And we realized that this was completely doable. It didn't cost us a lot of money. We didn't really have to buy anything. And so this was something that we could tweak rather easily. Overall, this has had a positive impact on every aspect of our library, and it's had an impact on the other things we do now with how we talk to the patrons, how we organize displays, how we even keep our office areas. A lot of times our doors are open to the patrons, and so we want to make that a positive space too. So it's really had a ripple effect. Since I last talked to Jamie, we really worked on making this a whole library initiative and not just the children's department. And so the last count I did, the last walkthrough I did during our whole library, we had one negative sign, or what I consider a negative sign, and that was in our computer area, and it said no food, no drink. And that was just for that specific area. The rest of the signs that we had were limited, and they were giving some kind of important information that was probably driven by the patrons. A trip to the library for many is more than just about getting books. It is really an experience. When I remember the library of my youth, I don't necessarily remember the books. Of course, I remember maybe one of my favorite books that I would check out there. But I remember riding my bike, and it was hot, and I opened the door, and it was nice and cool in that cool air. And I remember the comfortable chairs, and the library of my youth had a lot of places where you could curl up. And so I remember tucking myself into a corner and reading, and it being a relaxing environment. It wasn't the prettiest library. It was very outdated, but they created a wonderful experience for me, and it's an experience that I've carried with me my whole life and really made libraries dear to my heart before I became a librarian. So merchandising. What does a librarian have to do with merchandising? And I found this great article by DIMCO. This was on their website, ideasdimco.com, which we know DIMCO is a merchandiser themselves, but their articles they feature had wonderful things to think about. We all like to feel welcome in spaces that we frequent, and the visual appearance of each space often elicits an emotional response. We all have those places where when you drive by or when you see, you think of something negative. Oh, I got something at that car dealership and it was a negative experience, or I went to that and they treated my children wonderful. So oftentimes your experiences and your emotions are tied to spaces, and a lot of times it's a visual. Just because a library is not making money doesn't mean that it's not selling something. We are really marketing an experience, and we want it to be a good one. Most of the time, if you think about when you go to a store, other than maybe a shoplifting notice or a no smoking sign, there's really not rules of Target or rules of Walmart. And so that was something that we tried to incorporate in our library space. We didn't want patrons to know, oh, we have rules of the library. We wanted them to focus instead on our services and our products. So it's very important to look for ways to put your services and your products forward, but not necessarily your annoyances or your pet peeves. And why I say that, or what I mean by that, is we had upstairs an instance where somebody was pouring a beverage into the water fountain. They weren't leaving an ice mess, they weren't making a mess, but it bothered somebody on staff, and they put a sign up. It wasn't really a sign that was necessary, it wasn't really an issue, and so, of course, very quickly that sign came down. So one thing that we have to look at ourselves is when we put up a sign, is it because we're annoyed by something or is it something that we're hoping that we don't have to deal with? So that's something to keep in mind. Usually a great place to start is a circulation desk. So we look at easy tweak areas, and one of the things we did, this is our circulation desk in the picture, and we made sure to clear it off. We have the picture book of the day next to our computer. You can see that on the screen there. And then that's all that we have. Sometimes we'll have a bookmark to give away to the children so they know to look for something special up there. But we don't house our newsletters up there. Upstairs in the adult department, they've tried to organize all of their items into one area that's not necessarily the foremost attention. We want the space for patrons to come in and to be able to lay their stuff down. And oftentimes if there's clutter on a counter, I don't even tend to look at it. I mean, I'm not looking at the brochures and everything. I'm wanting to get my stuff out of there because I feel cramped. You can also look at bulletin boards, bathroom entrances, bathroom walls. We placed color signs in our little children's bathroom so that when the parents are in there with their children, they can talk about the colors and the signs that are on the wall. I saw on Pinterest a library that placed nursery rhyme characters around their changing table. Those were all very easy to do, but they make a positive impact, and they're merchandising because you're merchandising your experience. It also really led us into looking at how we merchandise our space too. The front of our circulation desk has shelving in it. This circulation desk has been here for a very long time, and so we didn't get it replaced in the renovation. Ideally, I think that I would take out the display because they tend to get knocked over and the little kids were grabbing them, and so we decided to put our board books there. They're right at the children's height, and they grab them, and now they go out much more, and so that was a small tweak. So I would really start with easy tweak merchandise areas. Sometimes breaking up is hard to do, and you might find that it's that way with your signage. One thing that I wanted to share with you was that you can work in your positive wording. I put this picture of the beverages in our library. As I said before, the only place that you can't have beverages is in the computer area. In fact, we sell hot beverages. But we had a patron who was drinking the creamer, and it would be really easy to put up a sign that said, "Please do not drink the creamer." But that could send a wrong message, maybe such as there's a crazy person in here who's drinking creamer, and that's not a message we wanted to send. And also, this was one person out of hundreds that we have come in, and so we decided not to put a sign up. We looked at positive wording, and we did a silent message. So on our sign, it says, "If you would like creamer or sugar, please see the circulation desk." And right off to the right side is the circulation desk. They can just say, "If you open the doors, the creamer and the sugar are down there. Please help yourself." But moving it created a silent message to whoever was drinking the creamer. We didn't have to put a sign up. We didn't have to alert other patrons to it, and we sent a silent message. We've not had a problem with anybody drinking the creamer, and we have a nice sign now, and we can still do our coffee that we really enjoy. So consider adding what to do instead of what not to do. Instead of "do not eat in this area," you could say, "Please, you're welcome to have a snack. Please have it in the foyer." Or, "You're welcome to have a soda. The trash can is," and give the location. So really consider turning those signs around. It makes a big difference. Take a good look at why your sign is needed in the first place. We had some children that were coming in after school. We are kind of a destination library. We're in a downtown business. There's really not a lot of residentials, but we're in a walking distance from a school, and so a lot of times we'll have children come up from the school. And we had a group of 4th or 5th graders that were coming up, and they were being what we considered a problem on both the adult and the children's department. And so there were some signs that were put up in their instance. And we really had to look at why the sign was needed. No running, no talking loudly, no leaving your trash around. And when we took a good look at that, we realized that it was probably on our side. We needed to put ourselves where those children were going to be. So in an area that we knew that they were running around, we just housed a staff member there for a little while. We got to know the children. We would look them in the eye and say, "Hi, how are you doing today?" We said, "Let's go down to the children's department. We have some things for you to do." And then down here we made sure we had something for them to do. And so a good thing to do is look at why the sign is needed and what you can do to combat the issue that is there. Train your staff. Instead of signs, we do one-on-one with patrons. I know this is a question we get a lot. Well, when you don't have no signs, how do you handle situations? We find that oftentimes it's just one patron or 2 patrons that are causing the problems. So we really work on how we're going to talk to the patrons. We might brainstorm if we change an area and say, what are the problems that could happen here, and how can we deal with it? And so we really tried to make it a positive experience and role play what we were going to say, that when we went over there, it did not turn into a conflict in us saying to these people, "You can't eat in the library." One of the things that we did with our after-school kids is we learned their names. There's a lot of power in knowing somebody's name. So we could say, hi, Jonathan, how are you today? Jonathan, let's look over here at this section. Or, hi, Molly, how are you today? I see you have a snack. Please remember the trash can's right over here. And you don't have to say, no, you can't eat in our library, or no, you can't be doing this in this space. And you want your staff to be comfortable with this too. It has to come natural, and it does after a little while. So the role playing was a big thing for us, or the brainstorming was a big piece for us. Okay, now how can we positively handle what might be considered a negative? And really, once we go over and address it, it usually doesn't happen again, or not from that person again. Of course, there's always an exception. We all have those exceptions to the rules, but it really has made a big difference. And I feel like most of our staff are very confident and able to handle this, and it's just what we do now. It's part of our environment. If your policy says floppy disk in it, you might need to take a look at it for updating. This is a good time to review policies and procedures. Within the last year, we've really gone over our policies and procedures and looked at, we have no cell phone usage. Why do we have that? Is that when cell phones were new? Is it time to update it? Is there an area where we can have cell phone usage? I saw a wonderful sign on Pinterest where they said, yes, you can use your cell phone, but please consider texting. And so that was a really nice way of saying, please don't talk on your phone in the library. And it sends a positive message to your patrons. Yes, you can do something here. I just wanted to stop and take a moment. Does anybody have any questions so far, or anything that I can answer for you?
Yeah, if anyone does have a question, please feel free to type it into the chat box, and I can relay that to Candy. Candy, one thing I wanted to ask is, of course, I'm going to be the negative Nilly here, but I like the idea of the soft message or the soft signage. And do you ever get comments or even just, opinions from people on staff who think, well, some people just need more directness, like they're not going to understand, they're not going to get it unless we're direct. I'm just curious if you've run into any of that.
We have, and we realize they're not going to get it on a sign either. Most of the time they're not looking at the sign. So saying, do not do this is not helpful. But what we honestly do is just be consistent. So if we have that one person who we know may be a problem, then we will go over, and we will be direct with them. I mean, we have a policy where if you're using our Ellis machine, which is a cutting machine, your child cannot be unattended in another room if they're below a certain age.
Sure.
And so we sometimes will have to tell the same family over and over again, I'm sorry you can't leave your child unattended, but here, let's get some toys so they can play in here. Or here, I'll open the program room since I'm in here and turn the bubbles on for you.
Okay.
Or I see that you have a drink in the computer. Let's put it up here until you're done, if that's okay with you. Or you're welcome to go sit in our foyer right now. I mean, so you do have some directness, and at first it's uncomfortable, but you just get used to it, and your patrons will see that you're not out to get them.
Right.
And that makes a big difference.
Right. I had something else I was going to mention, and I can't think of it. Anyway, Kent says, I wonder if we should even ban talking on cell phones when we don't ban people from talking in our library. We play music, we have complimentary coffee, cookies, etc. Any thoughts on that?
We actually don't ban cell phones. You'll have patrons cruising around talking on their cell phone. Sometimes when the cutters are in cutting on the machine, they'll be talking on their cell phone, and they won't realize how loud they're being. And so we may just walk by that area a couple times, and even just our presence will help them lower their voices. Every once in a while you get a patron who's having a conversation they probably shouldn't be having in a library, let alone in the children's department.
Yes.
I don't want to know what you did at the bar on Friday.
Right.
So one thing that you can do in that situation is figure out a place where they can go and say, I think you might be more comfortable having your conversation in this private room. It's not rude, but it lets them know, hey, this is not appropriate.
Right. exactly.
And then, of course, be willing to have them go in the space because they might take you up on that offer.
I think one thing that happens too, like you said with the coffee creamer drinker, had you put a sign up for that one instance, and I think we tend to do that. So whenever there's a problem, we create a policy, and I know I've done the same thing. We create a policy for it to alleviate the problem, and then all of a sudden our policy booklet becomes thicker and thicker and thicker. And so I do like that approach of actually, dealing with that one instance. Deanna asks, we have an overabundance of program flyers displayed at our library. Do you have any suggestions for reducing those?
What we did was we made a brochure that was like April through May. And you go to some libraries that are larger. We're obviously not a large library, and they have these wonderful printed magazines, and we're unable to do that. But we did make something nice on the computer. And so what we did is we took out all signage in the children's department in the entryway. So when you walk in, there is not any signage except a large calendar that we have and a coming soon board, which I'm going to show you. But we housed the community information near the circulation desk. So we put one of our flyers up on there, and we just kind of had to train our patrons to look over there and say, here's all of our information now. It's been moved over here. And so when they see that up there, they'll say, oh, can I take this? And so it's out of the way, and it's not cluttering up. Upstairs, they've really looked at how to condense because they have a lot more flyers than we do. So really look at your flyers, see what you can condense, see what you can have maybe one out, and have the rest where the staff knows where they are, where you can go get them. They don't all have to be out on the counter. You don't have to have 100 flyers out on the counter at one time. Maybe rotate them. Those are some things that we've done to kind of combat that issue because I think all libraries just are inundated with flyers and handouts.
I agree. Great. That's all we have for now, so you can keep going.
All right. This slide right here shows the impact of negative wording. And so here's some visual examples of some negativity that I've experienced in the library world. You can see all large bags must be left at the checkout desk. So this isn't unfamiliar to library to me, and I'm being told I have to leave my bag at the desk, or I have the fear in my head that maybe they've had a safety issue. Maybe there's been a shooting in this library, or somebody has brought a weapon in. Why do I have to leave my desk or my bag? So now I'm feeling a little unsure here. If you count them, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 negative messages on that door before you even get in. And you can see that the hour sign is kind of off to the side, so it's not even visually where it needs to be, and it's prominent information the patrons need to know. They also have the sign that says do not sit, and that would have been fine except there was 8 chairs with the do not sit sign on it. It was a display only, and there was only 1 chair in that particular room. And I thought the graphic of just having a person reading and saying no in the library was kind of a contradictory visual message. So I walk in, I can't sit down, I can't keep my bag, I feel like I have to be quiet, and there's a shush sign on the door. And so now I'm feeling like I can't talk at all. And it's obviously very old. It's very wrinkled. It looks like maybe it was done on one of the old printers. So, look at your signage. Does it need to be there? Can you update it? If you Google image search library signage or bad library signs, you're going to find a whole bunch. Some are amusing, but some are kind of just sad. And I've seen them on Flickr and Pinterest, but they can give you a perception of how people view our library signs. So people will write a tongue-in-cheek article about this sign, but really it kind of gives you a hint of how patrons may be feeling about your signage. So let's say you decide to go ahead and remove some of your signs or revamp some of your areas. What can you do now with that prime real estate? You have an empty wall. What can you do with it? Some places that we looked at for us was the wall directly across from the elevator. On the right, that was a coming soon that was in our foyer area. We moved it out to the elevator. And the stairwell, it was a dark area for us. The stairwell and elevator access kind of looks like a maintenance area. You come off of there, and there's 3 maintenance closets down there. And so by serving that, we let them know they're in the children's department. It also lets them defines a space for them. Yes, you're in the children's department. Here's what you're going to see. We rotate out our wall decor. We change our wall decor, 3 times a year, our main decorations. And so we rotate it into the stairwell in that area too, so they know that they're coming to the children's department. And the second reason for this is that patrons may find a book they want to reserve or check out. So before they even come into the children's department, they already have a book that they want. That's a guaranteed circulation. That's a way to boost your circulation. So it's a kind of a 2-for-1 deal. We looked at our stairwells and our vestibules. Our stairwells, we have book jackets or coming soon or you don't want to miss these signs, displays, and really all they are just book jackets that we pull off of our books. We don't do the dust jacket on ours, and we rotate those out. And so we find that a lot of patrons will come in and ask for those books. We have a large foyer room, and it's kind of an awkward space, so we've looked very hard at what we can do to that area. Around your circulation desk is a good area, which we talked a little bit about. For us, on the bottom right side where you see the tiny tot terrace, that was an easy tweak for us. Before we had our board books just in a basket on the floor, they were almost an afterthought. It really kind of looked like to me. And we had a blank wall there. And so what we did was just readjusted our shelving over on the left. We now have a shelf of board books. They're not alphabetized. Kids can pull as many off as they want, and we'll just put them back on. We bought some really cheap rain gutters, plastic rain gutters from Lowe's, and put those on the wall. We bought a $10 drip pan from Walmart. And one of our staff members is very gifted in decoration, so she made the signs for us. And let me tell you, that was an easy tweak. I think it cost $40, $50 at the most, and some effort from our maintenance man to put it up. But our overall average on board book circulation from 08 to 13 was 1,700. This last year alone, it's the highest it's been since 08. It was 2,122. That's a 414 book circulation difference. And that was really, I believe, just us making an effort to make a positive space for the babies. They now have their own area. It didn't cost us a whole lot. We probably could have got the donation of the shelf and the rain shutter guttering, so you can always look at that. So I did want to say to you, as you do this, take a shot in the dark and try something, but don't shoot off more than one toe. So, go ahead and listen to what your patrons are saying and really look at your circulation. If you're wanting to make a positive impact on displays or like we did on our board book areas, keep track of that. That also gives you information to take to your board. Or if you're having some negativity in these changes, it gives you kind of a backup to show somebody, kind of a, here's the information I want to show you, these stats. We love our stats. Keep your staff trained and up to date. They're your foremost front guard. I mean, they're the ones that are out there at the circulation desk promoting you, your books, your library. So keep them trained and help them feel comfortable with what they're doing. And in this change, comfort is one main key. You want them to be comfortable with those one-on-one confrontations if they need to. One reference that I found was anythinklibrary.org. And they are a library that created their own merchandising plan. And so they talk about what they want their physical space to feel like, what they want it to look like, what the staff needs to do, and what they're responsible for. And I just thought that overall it was very nice. There's no questions. The staff knows what they're going to be held accountable for, and it's all laid out there. Small changes can make a big visual impact here. The changes pictured above were all derived from noticing patron comments and reactions. These are all really patron-driven. The paint on the wall. We went from, that's our foyer area that's at the bottom of the exterior stairs, and it's just this awkward room, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later. But we had a patron come in who came to the library when she was a child and now brings her own children. And she talked about when she was little, she came in one time and the librarian had a canoe in that area. I mean, who thinks to bring in a canoe? But it was wonderful, and it was magical for her. She said it was almost a magical feeling, and it just really made her start to expect the unexpected from her library. And so we grabbed a hold of that, and we wanted to recreate that. We felt that the space visually looked a little cold and a little harsh. So we added our colorful wall calendar. That's one of the only signages we have in the entryway, and we update that every month with the current programs. And we have some book jackets of coming soon books. So patrons walk in and they get information they need. We added some color to the wall. I came in on the weekend and painted that myself. The library bought the supplies, but I did it on my own. So you may have a little elbow grease involved in your changing, and that's okay. We added a mess-free sandbox. So the children were so excited to think they might get to do something messy in the sandbox. But we also created a rotation of unexpected things that we can add into our foyer that makes it a magical experience. And you know, something as simple as adding a chair near your entryway or setting up a little seating area. Really look at your entrances and see what you can do to make those the best of the best before your patrons even get into the core. If you grab them at the door, imagine what it's going to be like when they get in and get to the heart of the library. We also added another row of lighting because that area was very dark. Being in the basement, our space is very dark. Down at the bottom on the left side, that's our OPAC machine. And as you can see from the picture, it's tucked away. The stairwell that it's up against is an interior from the adult department. If you come down the elevator, we had a grandma who only uses the elevator with her granddaughter, or we have parents that only come from the exterior stairwell because they don't use the adult department very much. They didn't even know that was there. And so it really stuck out to us that we needed to change that area. They had added lighting, which was a step in the right direction because it used to be dark. But we felt it needed to be moved. Plus, you could hardly get two people back there. So if somebody wanted help, it was hard to get the staff and the person back there to help them. So we moved it out to our main area. We got a touch screen so that it has a low footprint. It's not sticking out. And now it's right by the circulation desk, so we can step around the desk and say, let me help you, and we're not having to go to a completely different room in the corner to help somebody. We can now watch our areas where we don't have our signs and see what's going on there. It also gave us a free area back there where we're going to add a book nook. So as you rearrange your spaces, you might find that you have even more ways to add positivity or the unexpected or the fun to your space. Here's an example of a small tweak that made a positive visual impact. On the left, we have a sign. We have a nice display, a quote, and a nice display. And then we have a sign that says limit of 10 DVDs. That goes back to that's information our patrons need to know. They often would ask us, how many DVDs can I check out? So that is something they obviously need information for. We can just tell them, or we can put a sign up so they can feel independent. So some signage, you do need up. On the right side was a sign from November, I believe it was, saying that we were going to go to a different checkout. It's been several months now. It's time for that sign to come down. Now we can just tell patrons if they ask. We went to a receipt printer that has the due dates on there, so it was kind of redundant to have that up there saying we changed the date when they have the actual date on the receipt. So we decided that made the whole display. It was just harsh, and those papers just stuck out, and it just didn't make for a pretty display. So somebody on staff created a little tongue-in-cheek, brown bear, what do you see? I see you checking out up to 10 DVDs. So it gives the patrons information in a fun way. I know this is not something you would have in the adult department, but you could always get a nice frame and put your sign in a frame. I think there's nothing worse than seeing a very old, wrinkled-up sign on a shelf. Take the time to make it look visually nice. Humor goes a long way, too. And then you can see at the bottom, there it is again without those papers. Small tweak makes a big difference visually. I was going to pause and ask if anybody had any questions or wanted to know anything.
Yeah, thanks, Candy. Patty asks, how do you deal with children that come after school and pull out food and start eating without being totally negative?
Well, we don't say they can't eat. In fact, we welcome it. Some children walk after school, and they're going to be at the library for an hour until mom picks them up. They probably need a snack. What we've had to do is say, well, first we got to know their names and say, hey, John, I see that there's crumbs everywhere. Can you help me pick those up? I'll bring you the trash can. I mean, they're not going to like it, but they do it. And it's not in a negative way. You're not saying you can't eat here, and you're not yelling at them. And I would say it probably just like I said to you in the same tone. So it's visually or orally a warm tone, too. Or if we have a group that comes in that we know is particularly messy, we'll just say, hey, guys, grab the trash can and put your snacks in there. One thing that we did have to be careful with was that the kids would eat Doritos, and we knew they would have that orange stuff on their hands.
Yeah.
And so we would say, hey, Clarissa, I see that you're having Doritos today, and I know you're really hungry, and that's a wonderful snack, but I do need you to go wash your hands before you touch any of the books. And then make sure to watch them and make sure they do it. And when they see you're serious, then they're not going to abuse the situation.
Okay.
So, again, it's just having that conversation, and sometimes you have to have it more than once.
So really, less signage has actually had to make you talk to people more.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And it's a wonderful thing.
Some people might not think so. I say that tongue in cheek, but
you know what? Some of my staff didn't at first, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. But really, that's what we're there for.
Okay, great. Thank you.
These pictures here may not look like a big change, but this really comes down to an instance where we made our patrons very happy. We started up in the top left corner with this area. I took over from a librarian who had been here 33 years and was very set with her ways. It had been very consistent for a long time, and so that's kind of where I came in at. So this is what I looked like when I came in. Well, one day the assistant and I were standing around, and we were talking about how we just don't have a lot of older kids just hanging around. We kind of wanted to have a place that was full of kid voices and bustling and happy, and they didn't stay. They came, got their book, and they left. And as you look at that area, that's our chapter book, part of our chapter book area. You can see why they didn't stay. There's nowhere to stay. I mean, they just could walk around the circuit there and then leave. In our picture book room, there was furniture, and it was a little more child-friendly, but it was for a smaller child. Right before I came, they ordered this furniture that you see, this red furniture. Now, it's not my favorite color, and it's not necessarily the furniture that I would have ordered, but I've really learned to love it. But they ordered it for that awkward foyer area where you saw the orange wall and the sand table, and it fit just perfectly. But what we found was that our young children love to bounce. They would bounce from the chair to the ottoman to the sofas, and they would bounce, and sometimes they would bounce unattended, which was a little scary for us. And that was a conversation that we kept having to have over and over again. We could have put up a sign that said, don't bounce, but with little kids, they can't even read it anyway. And so the parents would feel stressed out. I could just feel the parents stressed because they're like, oh, my kid's bouncing on this furniture. And we'd hear the conversation, you don't bounce on the chairs at home. Don't do that here. We heard that a lot. And that was right before they left to go outside. And so they were leaving stressed out and with a negative feeling. And we also found that the older kids didn't sit there, the adults didn't sit there. They would go sit in the foyer on the furniture for a little while, and then they would move. So we tried to move one of the red couches in, and that kind of split up the seating. The kids could only now jump from the chair to the ottoman. But nobody sat on that. And now looking at this picture, I see why. It's because they're looking at books. There's not really an area that offers for conversation. They can look at the books or sit sideways and talk to a friend, but you can only fit 2 people on there. We had one patron, an adult patron, who came in, and she kept moving the chair to the plug-in because she wanted to sit and do on her laptop or plug in her phone. And that was something that we didn't want the kids to see. And, nobody was super excited about it. And we just could tell that that was not a good experience for them. And so we moved the rest of the furniture over. We put it up against the wall where the plug-in is. We moved our magazine rack, which is that brown kind of triangle over on the left. So now we have kids that we did not have before come in after school, hang out, they sit down, we change what's on the ottoman quite a bit. They play, they have a snack. A lot of times they'll sit on the couch. It's twofold. Our circulation desk is right there, so we get to watch them have a snack and see if there's a mess. The OPAC machine is there. They grab a magazine. It's wonderful. It's been wonderful.
Candy?
Uh-huh.
What is the green thing in the corner?
That just happens to be our decoration.
Oh.
Right now we have an art theme going on, and so that's an empty paint can that has a tablecloth like paint spilling down.
Okay.
That's kind of a tucked away little area, so we try to keep something there.
Okay, thank you.
So you can start small, and the rest just kind of comes along. So now we really look at what we can do for that area, and then we looked at, well, that was a seating need. I mean, patrons asked us, did you get new furniture? This had been the foyer the whole time. One of the things that I did for a week, various times during the day, is I went out and sat in that furniture in the foyer, and I found out several things. When you open the door, it was cold. The cold air would rush down the stairs, and nobody wants to sit there and read where it's cold. And people would look at you when they came down the bottom of the stairs. And so that was a negative experience for our patrons. We tweaked it a little. They thought we bought new furniture, even though it had been there for a year. And they commented, several of them commented on how much they liked it and wanted this furniture at their house, and now we have people sitting on it. So really listen to what your patrons are saying or what they're not saying. If they're not as super excited about a change you make, you might need to tweak it. This didn't cost us anything. This was just us pushing around some furniture during a slow time. So if you're constantly getting asked for information, or if you're constantly battling something, you might look at why and what you can do. Really listen to those patrons. We don't get a lot of comments about not having no signs, but we get a lot of positive comments about our environment. If somebody moves into the community, they'll say, it's so friendly here, or we can eat here, that's fantastic, or, you know, you can just kind of hear the surprise in their voice, or my child can have their beverage here. And I guarantee you that if we started putting up the negative signs, they would notice. You know, they don't notice necessarily the positive, they just notice the great environment. But if we turned it to negative, they would notice that. And it's really about the experience for us. And it's really spread to the rest of the building too. So this is something that I bet you will find yourself starting, and it will just grow and grow. And that being said, there's always room for improvement. This is our lobby area. We have a beautiful lobby area with marble and a big twisting staircase, but you can see that there is our fire alarm, and right above that's a piece of paper. On the door is our hours and another piece of paper, and on the right wall is another piece of paper. Those are all three the same signs. So that sends the message of we're sign happy, and we don't think you're going to see this information. And so that's something that we need to either put a calendar up or do a display or talk about how we are going to use our positive signage. Down at the right, you have this beautiful, please feel free to do our puzzles, and you're welcome to play solitaire. And we have a lot of people spend time here, but then they threw in the digital books trying to advertise, which is great, but even from the picture, you can tell it just looks awkward. I took the picture, and then I had to read what was on the sign because I didn't even look at the sign. I walk by it a lot. It just visually isn't nice, and it breaks up your nice positivity that you created. Getting from negative to positive. These are some things that was really helpful to me. Get out of your own skin. I heard at a conference, you have to become your patron. Start asking yourself, why not? We have a whisper tube, which is a tube that goes up through our wall into another tube where the children can talk to each other. You see them a lot at the parks. That costs us very little money, and I had saw it on Pinterest or heard about it in a program, and I thought that would be so awesome. And then I thought, well, why can't we do that? So if you see something online or in a catalog, ask yourself, why can't we do that, and what can we do on our level to get us there? Have family members or community members do a mystery shop. Your friends of the family could be, or friends of the library could be an important role in this. Have a few of them come in and just mystery shop. This is not a discipline piece for your staff, though, or for other people. You're not really having them critique what the staff is doing. You're having them look at how many no signs did we have. Was there dirty smudges on the wall? Did you feel like you got the information you needed? Make it a physical and visual shop. Bring in family or friends. I know my daughter's very opinionated, and she would love to share the areas that aren't working for her. Again, listen to your community. I can't say it enough. They are your biggest asset in making your positive changes because really you're doing this for them. Have discussion items with your director or your staff. Sometimes just standing around with your staff and saying, do you feel like this wall has a lot of smudges, or does this area feel really dark to you? Have you ever noticed that when you point something out to somebody, it then becomes hard to ignore it? And that goes along with try a different approach. The proof is in the pictures. We keep pictures of all the changing that we do, and it's really easy to be in the middle of a project and kind of want to fizzle out. But those starting pictures show you how far you've come. And so that is really a good, strong piece. And it also can let you, if you need something or you want to have a wish list item, you could take it to the board and say, look at all this wonderful stuff we've worked on. Volunteers are wonderful. We don't really have a lot of volunteers, unfortunately, in our community, but I know a lot of libraries do. So they could do things like wash down the walls or you know, re-laminate your signs for you. Or if you have your local school that has a graphic design department, ask them to create some wonderful signs for you. Our chapter book area is now genre-fied instead of just alphabetical order. It's still alphabetical order, but in the genres. And so we worked with our local master art program at the high school, and they were very willing to make some chalkboard signs for us to help direct our patrons during this change with what the different genres are. Make a plan. We created our own 5-year plan, which includes physical spaces. We also, during this, created a motto. Now, our library has a Grow, Learn, Connect motto, but in the children's department, we came up with Inspire, Excite, Encourage. And we often measure what we're doing to that motto. Does this space or does this sign or does this area fit our motto or our goal? We want to be that awesome. And so our 5-year plan really helps with that. And it helps combat some negativity I'm going to share with you in just a minute. Be ready. There are negatives of going positive. You may hear, this is how we've always done it. Have a lot of talk time, so it takes time to grow. Say, hey, I think that we may be having this change. What do you think about it? Or, you know, what do you think if the end of March we just do something with this area? Give it time to grow. Plant the seed and let it germinate. I took over from, as I said, from a librarian who'd been here 33 years. Things had been done a certain way a lot. There was no color on the wall. Some areas had been kept the same for a long time. And so I kind of had to have the tagline of, let's just try it for a little while, and if we don't like it, we can put it back. And of course, we didn't make any permanent changes when I said that. So let's just see how it goes. And if we don't like it or if we find it's not working, we can put it back. Nothing is permanent. And that really helped with hearing that. I heard it so much less. And the staff is wonderful. They're now contributing their own ideas. They think of things I don't even think of or I notice. They're out in the stacks a lot more than I am. So they get to bring areas that they think needs changed. And I make sure that we implement them in some of them. And we don't have the fun, the time, the resources, which is, I know, a problem for everybody right now. And so you may have to involve a little elbow grease. I came in and painted on the weekend. Look at Pinterest. Pinterest is full of wonderful things. You know, the red furniture, we just move things around. We just took down signs and put up a community board. I mean, there's just all kinds of things you can do that doesn't cost money. And as far as time goes, you'll always find time. Why should we do this? Really having staff buy-in is very, very helpful. And your 5-year plan will help with that. And having answers for why we should do this, or I really hear what you're saying and I'll take it into consideration, helps with that. Wow, you've changed things. Usually from a patron, followed by, I don't like it, or why do you have to do this? And we went to plastic sleeve DVDs. And our patrons didn't like it. At first, I don't think some of the older patrons didn't understand it. They were a little confused. Some people didn't even realize the DVDs were there. And so we had an older patron who was exclaiming that she didn't like it. And so I just handled that by saying, I'm sorry you don't like it. Here's why we went to the sleeves. This is going to allow us to add 200 more DVDs. Do you have any DVDs you would like to recommend? So it took her mind off of the negativity, and it gave her something positive. And she left that day thinking that she had contributed something and she was heard, and now we may have a DVD that she really wants. So you're probably going to hear that. Think about how you can address that. Again, the role playing there is very helpful. I can't wait until this is over. The 5-year plan helps with this, and this is more of a staff thing. When are we going to stop doing all of this? Having baby steps, having discussions really help, because the truth of the matter is we are never going to stop looking, or we shouldn't stop looking for those things that make positive impacts and do away with negativity. We have enough competition as it is that we want to make just a wonderful positive experience for everybody. And so it's really just by talking about it and having a plan and getting everybody on board, people will see that this is not going to go away. But when they hear the patrons say wonderful things about it, they'll realize it's worth keeping. I can do better. Let them. That doesn't mean that you can't say, okay, but I want to make sure this doesn't happen here. You know, put in your piece, but then let them do it. They may do it better, and it will give them ownership and buy-in, and it'll just make the process so much easier. Time will tell. Patrons will notice, and they will say nice stuff as these changes are being made. Be sure to give credit to the whole team. We all are very careful to give credit to everybody. Work hard to leave a lasting impression. Make them miss your place when they're not there. Make them want to come back. Use your last chance to wow them. We have stairwells, like I said, all over the place. They're not pretty. On this one particular stairwell, we painted numbers. So as the kids go up, they count the numbers. We recently resurfaced these with a material that grabs so the children, can't slip as easily. And the numbers were off for a little while. And we had adults coming in saying, I missed the numbers. And as they leave, they're counting. So their parents are having a positive, interactive experience with their child. Their child's learning. They know it's there. It's fun. All it cost us was the time to put it on there. Most people have a hour sign on the back of on their door. Think about writing, thank you for coming today on the back of that sign. I mean, that's the last thing they see. The sign's there anyway because the hours are on the other side. Thank your patrons. Let them know you appreciate their visit and you hope to see them soon. And overall, this grows. It spreads. Like I said, we look at everything differently now. We look at how we talk. We look at how we plan. We look at what we purchase. And it's really paid off. And this last year, we were awarded with the Chamber of Commerce Business of the Year award for our community, which is a little unusual because we're not a business entity, really. And so it was very exciting. But I really think that, I'm not saying that the negative signage led to this, but having all the positive, we just made it a goal overall to look for positive experiences for our patrons, and it does pay off. And so I'm going to leave you with a little bit of an assignment. Grab a pad of paper, your assistant, a coworker, a colleague, and do a walkthrough. Count your no signs and look with fresh eyes. Really look at what's there. Sometimes you get used to seeing things. We had a red box display that had been up for about a year, and we took it down. And people that worked at the library didn't even notice it was gone. You just get used to seeing things. So take a look with fresh eyes. Thank you so much for your time today. I'm going to leave you with my information, and I wanted to let you know that if you go to our Pinterest account, I created a board, Just Say No, and it has some really helpful articles, and it has some funny no signs that kind of let you know that there's some silly signages out there. So thank you so much for joining me, and I'll be available for questions, of course, and I'll do my best to answer.
Thank you, Candy. We are just about out of time. We can take a question or two if something comes through. And I wanted to mention I like the idea of making things fun, the thing that you did with Brown Bear and the DVDs. I was on a flight a couple months ago, and I want to say it was Alaskan Airlines. I don't even remember, but in one of how the flight attendants always do the safety demonstration, and most of us we've heard it, so we ignore it. But one thing they did, this was actually a video that showed on our screen, and it was in an 80s theme. So they had so when they had the thing like keep your seatbelt on, when there's turbulence. Like they had a guy like doing the moonwalk like down the aisle, and like a flight attendant asking him to go back to his seat, or like please keep your hands and feet out of the aisle, and they had a woman's big 80s hair like kind of blocking the aisle, and please turn off your your electronic devices, and they all had Walkmans and tape decks, and it was very funny, and you could hear chuckles throughout the plane, and we actually watched because it was fun instead of ignoring it. So I do think it pays to add some humor, add some fun to some of your signage, and I think what you're doing is just awesome, and congratulations on the award, by the way. Just want to mention to everyone that the slides will be available, the recording will be available to you. It will be sent in your follow-up email. Of course, you have her information on the screen. If you think of anything or want to share anything, please feel free to email her. Candice, thank you so much again for sharing these wonderful ideas. I'm hearing a lot of great feedback already, and thank you all for taking the time. I know it's a beautiful day. I know you're all busy for listening in. So have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your week. Thanks, everyone.